What is good, everybody? Welcome to Under Review on the Gold Standard Podcast Network and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. He's Vish Kumaran. Vish, the draft is officially in the books. How are you feeling?
Excited as always. I've got my Marvin 49 draft recap already on a new tab ready to go, Rob. That will be tonight's entertainment before I go to sleep. I'll rewatch the 49ers draft. I didn't see the ESPN version live. I only watched NFL Network and was trying to catch McAfee with Belichick as well. So I'm excited to catch the ESPN takes. I also got my first indication that I'm old this weekend. Quite an eventful weekend for me.
What happened?
So basically I played soccer growing up, and it's just something that I picked up playing again, like a little bit of recreational as an adult here. And turns out my body, it's not as pliable and as athletic as it used to be. Let's just say that I hurt my ankle 2 weekends ago, hurt my other ankle this weekend, and I don't have great ankles to begin with, but my ankles weren't getting sprained this easily before. So yeah, I feel like it's just an age thing, Rob. I'm nearing you. I'm catching you.
You're a young man. It'll happen more and more. Vish is giving off Elijah Mitchell vibes. We'll get to that in a second. Just want to say, leave us a 5-star rating and a review on Apple Pods. If you do, we will read it on the show. WWE Champs Say No left us 5 stars. Says it's draft day. Love the channel. Look forward to the instant reaction. Les Grant would be nice. Keep grinding and putting up the best combination of Niner voices. Grant.
Poor Grant.
To have his haters. All right. Let's get into it. We're going to go through the picks. We'll talk about the class as a whole. We'll talk about some things that the 49ers said after the draft was over. There's sort of another like Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel trade thing out there too that we want to get to. I saw floating around on Twitter. So we got a lot to do. I just want to make a general point about draft grades before we get into like the individual picks, Vish. Do you know what the 49ers got last year from Mel Kiper as a draft grade off the top of your
probably an A?
They got
an A. Oh, B minus. Okay, I was nowhere close.
NFL.com gave him a B minus. Sporting News, same thing. Last year's draft class for the 49ers was hideously bad, except for half a season of Jair Brown and Jake Moody, who was okay for a rookie kicker.
Right.
So, like, I see people freaking out today because the draft grades are not that high. It's like, if these people couldn't tell that last year's class stunk, don't worry about what they're grading this year.
Yeah. And I'll say one more thing on draft grades as well, and why I think it's a bad exercise. I don't think the concept of grading a draft is necessarily a bad exercise, right? Like, people do put in effort into deciding, like, does a team, like, what they're doing financially and in terms of team building, does it make sense? I don't think that's useless, but the way the draft grades are done is useless. I tweeted this in regard to the Ricky Pearsall pick, and then I saw my buddy Billy M, shout out to him on Twitter. You should follow him as well. He tweeted it in a more succinct way. Basically, that the issue with draft grades is people end up grading the draft based on how they perceive the players drafted, not based on how the players drafted actually fit within the vision of the team. So, for example, if you were grading a draft and you were looking at the 49ers draft and you were going to say, well, hey, Ricky Pearsall wasn't my favorite wide receiver at 31, but I understand why they took him because he makes sense for them, and that's a good pick, then I understand what you're saying. But if you're just going to say, well, I would not have taken Pearsall, I would have taken A.D. Mitchell, without considering the fact that nobody decided not to block on film amongst the wide receivers more than A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell is a backside X receiver. One of the big things with the 49ers, if you look at the receivers they drafted, whether it's Deebo Samuel, whether it's Dante Pettis, whether it's Brandon Ayuk in college, is they play all three wide receiver positions in college. Ricky Pearsall did that. And so these are some of the things that I think need to be considered when you're talking about draft grades. I know I'm using the Niners pick as an example. Part of it is me defending them because I'm a fan of the team and I love every draft pick they've ever had the day after the draft. That's just how I am. But I feel like grades in general, if we did it from the perspective of does it make sense? And I think that's what you and I are probably going to do with a lot of the Niners picks over the course of the next 50 minutes. And I think that one of the things we discussed immediately on the phone, not to preview the show too much, is that a lot of the Niners picks do make sense. even if it wasn't necessarily the player people weren't expecting to hear.
I completely agree. I think if you look at the class as a whole, you can understand where they were coming from. And if you're watching on the stream right now, you can see the class as a whole. They went offense more than defense. 5 of the 8 picks were offense. And there was like either a clear need or a clear sort of path to why they took the pick. Ricky Pearsall, obviously with the wide receivers, we talked about that. They needed another corner. They got one. They needed an offensive lineman. I think they needed a tackle. You know, we all kind of wanted them to take a tackle, but they got somebody in Dominic Puni that can play all 5 positions. He's probably better at the interior, but certainly they needed to improve there anyway. They needed another safety. They got one. The running back pick they didn't have to. That was kind of a luxury pick, but I love Guerendo. I think he's a freak. So we can talk about that. They drafted another lineman, a linebacker. Like, none of the picks to me were like, what are they doing? Why would they ever draft somebody at this position? I kind of get it.
And it's 100% in line with what they did in free agency, right? One of the things you and I talked about early in this process is when everybody was talking about O-line, O-line, O-line for the 49ers in February post the Super Bowl, we looked at the defensive line and we were talking about, hey, that's what they're going to look to rebuild this offseason. They attacked that completely in free agency. They understood the draft doesn't have a lot of depth in terms of defensive linemen. In terms of being at 31, I'm assuming Leatu, Latu, Dallas Turner, and Jared Verse, probably just Turner and Latu went maybe a little later than they would have ideally expected, but they probably thought we got no chance at them. This is not the draft for us to build up our edge rushers, our interior pass rush. Let's go in free agency and let's spend all our money on making sure that that's good and that's set in stone. Let's make sure our linebackers are good and set in stone. We drafted 2 last year. Let's also get a veteran as an insurance policy for Dre Greenlaw. They made sure that was set in stone. Yep. They signed 2 corners before the draft. So when you look at what they did prior to the draft, you understand now why did they go offense at all of these positions? Well, they looked at this draft and they said, we only can go offense here. So let's go and sign as many defensive players before the draft as possible. And that's what they did.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. They went into this draft being like, we don't have to freak out. We're okay. And we'll let it come to us and we'll see where it falls. First up, and if you're tired of seeing these graphics, I'm sorry, but you know what? I spent a lot of time making them and I only got like one more day to use them. So Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver from Florida. I didn't know much about him before he was picked. I'm not going to lie. But I feel like neither did everybody else because he wasn't in a lot of mocks. And so people are like, oh, he stinks. He's terrible. This was an awful pick. He was going to be there in round 3. Like, stop. We don't know that. Look at his skills. Look what he does. He ran a 4.41, which is fantastic. He can track the ball, which if you've seen any of his highlights, you could see some great catches of him tracking the ball in the air. And he can take a freaking hit, Vish. My God. I really like the things that Ricky Pearsall can do because I think they fit with what they're going to ask him to do in San Francisco.
Okay. I 100% agree with you. I'm going to put a disclaimer out there. I had a prediction that this was going to be the pick with the Herm Edwards connection with how well he did in the Senior Bowl. I had told a couple people before. I think I called Jesse Taylor actually a week before the draft, and I was like, hey, I think they're going to take Ricky Pearsall, and that's why. So I'm biased already to begin with. I love the pick. I love Ricky Pearsall. I don't know anybody that watched Ricky Pearsall during the draft and said they didn't love Ricky Pearsall. He's a stud. He rocks. You watch him, he's awesome. And I think he's a perfect fit for the 49ers. Now, you talk about the strengths and weaknesses. I agree with them, but I think there's more nuance to it. One, with the can struggle with press coverage, I don't think that's going to be much of an issue because I don't think he's going to be the Niners X receiver in most situations, which means he's going to line up off the ball in most situations as either the flanker or in the slot. And in those situations, you can get him free releases, and he is really, really good at creating separation at the top of the route. He's a perfect fit with Brock Purdy because he gets open on time. He's very, very efficient with how he gets open. There's not a lot of wasted movement with him creating separation at the top of his routes. He catches the ball very, very, very well. It's not just the ball tracking, but the hand-eye. And then you talked about his toughness. He rocks. I think that he's going to be an amazing fit with this team. I think he's an amazing fit with Brock Purdy. I think he's exactly what they were missing in the Super Bowl. That was my takeaway when I saw this pick. Yep. I was like, wow, now we finally know why Kyle Shanahan felt they lost the Super Bowl. he felt like their biggest issue was they could not separate against man coverage. And the first thing he went and did was get a guy who separates against man coverage. I think Ricky Pearsall is the future flanker of this team. You and I, 2 weeks before the draft, did a show where we talked about trading Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. And we said, if they take a receiver at 31 and don't trade Brandon Ayuk before then, that receiver at 31 will be to replace Deebo Samuel, and they will pay Brandon Ayuk. I think that's exactly what this is. Ricky Pearsall is the future flanker. This is their Adam Thielen to Brandon Ayuk, Stephon Diggs. This is exactly the perfect fit in terms of that position for Brock Purdy in that version of the offense. And I think it's an evolution. I love the player. I love the pick.
I don't know why people would be upset about it. They're going to need a wide receiver. Like, this is a real thing. And I think that...
And a good one, not just anyone. They want a good one.
And I think what it came down to for them is Pearsall, wherever he ranked in terms of wide receivers, 4, 5, 6, whatever the number was better than tackle number 8, 9, 10, whatever it was. It just, best player available, won out for the 49ers. And
right.
By the way, can we see a damn slot fade? Can we use the slot fade on somebody instead of having it used against us? Can I see Ricky Pearsall on a slot fade, please?
Yeah, 100%. But I also don't know why people are saying he's only a slot guy. That's what I don't get. Like, people are like, oh, we took a slot guy. No, he's going to play outside. In fact, I think that he might be more suited to playing outside than Deebo. Maybe Deebo gets kicked inside a little bit more often to create more space for him to get open. Because first of all, he's fast enough to play on the outside. And second of all, he's tough enough and physical enough to play on the outside as well. I don't actually understand a lot of the negative opinions to Ricky Pearsall, other than the fact that he was a surprise and maybe you preferred A.D. Mitchell. And like I said, I thought A.D. Mitchell was a better prospect than Ricky Pearsall on paper too. But for the 49ers, I never understood A.D. Mitchell as a fit. I understand Ricky Pearsall totally is a pick, and then and then Rob, like you said, like I said, for the 4th time, 5th time, let's reiterate it. I don't understand the negativity towards it. There's not really a lot to hate about Ricky Pearsall, the player, other than the fact that he's 24.
Right, but I saw something that the average age of this draft class was like 23 years and change, just because a lot of stayed in school.
And I saw a lot of people make of the 49ers, oh, they drafted so many guys who were 5th-year seniors and all that. I felt like they prepped us for that before the draft when they told us that they had like 77 or whatever players that they deemed draft eligible, draft worthy going back to school. Like, I thought they prepared us for already the situation that these are the kind of players that they would take. I don't know. I feel like sometimes I feel like with this pick, especially because there's a lot of people I respect who aren't as positive about it as me, I feel like I'm just lacking objectivity because I predicted it. But I loved the pick. I love Ricky Pearsall.
And how about this? Over the last 2 seasons, he has 14 catches and 338 receiving yards on deep crossers, which led all FBS players in both categories over that span. 439 total yards on crossing routes since 2022, our second most in the FBS. Guess what he's gonna do in San Francisco, Vish? And this is one of my core draft beliefs. Don't try and change somebody. Assume that who they are in college, for the most part, is largely who they'll be in the NFL. You don't draft a zone corner and make him play man, right? You don't draft a slow guy and tell him he's got to get fast. Just draft a fast guy. If Pearsall is good at crossers, great. Welcome to the 49ers, where that's all we run.
I like that. I also, man, I don't know. Do you get it? Like, what are we missing? Are we being too positive here? Is there something here where it's like, hey, this is obviously a reason why this wasn't maybe the direction they would have gone? Because even the tackle conversation, I feel like it's one we had. We talked about it, right? I talked about, hey, Anton Harrison, when we were talking about him, when we were talking about possibly offensive line at 31 in February and March, Anton Harrison in February and March in the 2023 draft wasn't a guy projected to go at 28, 29. But as these tackles go, because they're so highly coveted, because there's very few of them, and when you have ones that you feel like are NFL ones coming into the league, they all go in the first round. I felt like you're going to have tackles that, hey, we were talking about as 3rd-round picks maybe 2 months ago, being in the end of the first-round conversation. And that's kind of what I felt like ended up happening with Guyton and all of that. Like, those were not guys I felt like originally when we came to the draft, we knew that they would be first-round picks for sure. It's just the fact that if you have first-round traits as a tackle, the demand for the position is so high and the supply is so low, they go way faster. And that's where I didn't feel like they were in a great position, honestly, to take one. And so I don't know. I thought that this would be the draft direction they would go, and that's why I'm not all that upset. In fact, I'm very happy about it.
Merrily Murphy watching on YouTube says if Pearsall was 21 or 22, I'd be absolutely ecstatic. Him being 24 gives me a little hesitancy, but that's a problem for future us. That's true.
Debo was 23 when they picked him, right?
I don't remember off the top of my head. But I'll say this, like, it doesn't bother me as much as some people because, like, what does that mean? Does that mean he maybe only has a 4 or 5 year career in San Francisco instead of like a 6, 7, or 8 year career? Maybe, but he may be the type of player where he plays for the Niners, plays really well, but he's one of those guys that you just know you're not going to give a second contract to anyway.
So I'm less informed with this, so I will give you what I understand of this, but I think there's a metric when it goes to dynasty, specifically regarding fantasy football and scouting receivers. And it directly has to correlate with their age of peaking in college and then them succeeding in the NFL. So, like, for example, with Jamar Chase, I think that was like any receiver that had dominated college football at 19, like their peak in the NFL was very high. So the dynasty people really valued him. I don't know the exact metric. I'm not involved enough in dynasty fantasy football to know that, but I wonder if that's where the comment is coming from, where maybe Murphy is much more informed on that. And if he can maybe let us know, because I think that's a completely different topic of conversation. Because I agree, if we're just talking about him being 24 versus 21 without that, what you said is 100% right. It doesn't matter, because if he makes it to 36, whether he starts at 22 or 24, you've won.
Mitchell and Ness says Niners had greater needs at other positions than wide receiver. If Debo stays, then having a number 4 wide receiver that will be lucky to have 30 targets is not smart. Couple of things, Mitchell and Ness. First, they had other picks in the draft, which they did address those needs. Second, what about when Debo misses his 2 to 3 games every year like he does? Then all of a sudden it's Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, and Ronnie Bell. You really want to see more Ronnie Bell out there? Like, no, man, no. And also, we don't know what's going to happen with Debo Samuel. Maybe the 49ers start to have a bad year next year and they decide they want to move on from Debo at the deadline. Who the hell knows? I saw this tweet from Bryant McFadden, who, of course, used to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did you see this, Vish?
No, I did not. CBS analyst, though, Bryant McFadden.
He tweeted out earlier today, as I can throw it up on the screen here. Ooh, Omar is working. The Steelers are very close to landing a significant playmaker. Hashtag here we go. Stay tuned. And I was like, all right, we know they wanted Ayuk. Then 95.7 The Game tweeted out, we're being told it's a wide receiver related and matches up with everything the Steelers have previously wanted to do. We're thinking Ayuk or Debo or Cortland Sutton from Denver. It's not dead yet, boys. What if they got a crazy offer from Debo and decided to do it? It's nice to have Pearsall there. So I totally get going wide receiver in round one.
Right. And Matt Barrows, I thought, also made a really good point around draft time. By the way, I will put this out there for the record. I don't think any of them end up getting moved this offseason because I think there's more value for the Niners at this point with where they are in 2024 to just run it back with everything they got and deal with maybe lesser assets for Debo Samuel in 2025 than to really cut that salary and still face a loss and not really fully replace him in his value at this point in 2024. So I will put that out there for the record. But going back to the idea of them being traded, I think Matt Barrows made a very, very good point in regard to the Ayuk negotiation in Debo. Debo currently being there doesn't let Ayuk get too crazy with his number, I feel like. And Barrows' point was, if Debo gets traded, you might lose all leverage where Ayuk will now feel like you're desperate for me. You have nobody else that's a star receiver, and I want $32 million, and the Niners would have to pay him. That was Barrows' point. Rob is shaking his head.
They don't have to pay him. He's on the 5th-year option. They can franchise him twice. They don't have to pay him. They have
in terms of the negotiation, though, because they want to come to a long-term deal, right, with Brandon Ayuk. We're under the impression that that's what they want, right? They don't want to go through the salary cap negotiate or the franchise tag. So in that case, I thought Barrows' point about keeping Debo at least as long as you're done negotiating with Ayuk was interesting. And I wonder if then maybe that opens up a second window, like you brought up, to trade Debo. Because I think at this point, when I look at their receiving core, I look at Debo being more replaceable than I look at Ayuk.
You mean like a post June 1 trade of Debo Samuel, which would only count 6.6 million in dead money? That kind of second window?
I don't think they would even do it then. That's my prediction, but that's the move that I think would make sense at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to trade him either, but I'm just reporting. I mean, I'm not reporting, obviously. I'm just reading what's on Twitter. I didn't make Brian McFadden tweet that
Right.
out
No, absolutely.
game. I'm just
Absolutely. And I will say about the wide receivers, like this idea that they could have another position of need. I don't necessarily know if Niners fans seem to value the wide receiver position as much as they seem to value the wide receiver position. I think them taking a wide receiver at 30 tells you that it's not just that they want a wide receiver and a very good one in this offense. They're also very particular on the kinds of receivers that they want in this offense. And so when they feel like they have an opportunity to get a good one, they feel like it's too valuable an opportunity to pass up. Now, they have had their misses. Shanahan traded up for Dante Pettis, and he picked him, and that was an absolute miss. But he also picked Jalen Hurd. But the point is, I feel like they're very particular about that, and I think they value it. And so when we're looking from the standpoint of, hey, why did they do what they did in the draft? I don't think it's as simple as we can analyze and say this is what they should have done, because I always consider the fact that they probably talked about doing that. So I want to understand why they didn't do that. And to me, the reason they went receiver at 30 is because they seem to value that position a lot more than I think it's given credit to by the media or Niners fans.
I think you're right, Vish. I think what they have done speaks volumes. Yes, there's what they say, but also what they have done. I think it speaks volumes. So Ricky Pearsall was the pick. I think it's good for now. I think it's good for later. I didn't have any problem with it. Plus, like, it's fun when they pick a skill player because then you get to go on YouTube and watch them.
100%. And he's always sick on YouTube, right? Even AJ Jenkins was sick on YouTube.
It's more fun. Offensive linemen, you need them, no question about it. But it is more fun to watch a wide receiver.
Oh, 100%. And you're already imagining Purdy to Pearsall. You're imagining this perfect statistical, I like seasons being statistically well-rounded.
Mm-hmm.
So Purdy throws for 5,000, 1,000 to Ayuk, 1,000 to Debo, 1,000 to Kittle, 1,000 to Pearsall, and then 1,000 distributed, maybe 700 to McCaffrey, and then 300 to Jennings and co. I would like it distributed like that. Of course, McCaffrey's also running for 1,500 yards in this hypothetical, Rob. Don't forget that. This is the greatest offense in NFL history, but
it was pretty damn. I mean, think about it. Like, I saw a tweet, and it wasn't a tweet. I apologize. It was a really good article from Kyle Posey, who was talking about, they've paid off, so to speak, the Christian McCaffrey trade. All the picks have been used, and they got basically a pile of nothing. The 49ers dominated the trade, of course, obviously. But KP's point was that Shanahan had an entire offseason to craft an offense around Christian McCaffrey's skill set. And what happened? The Niners were first in overall expected points added, first in overall success rate, first in dropback EPA, first in dropback success rate, first in rushing EPA, rushing success rate, DVOA, red zone scoring percentage, and points per play.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Hell, could it have possibly gone any better? So let's trust that Kyle Shanahan knows what he needs to keep the offense going. Now, let's get into the second round pick. Renardo Green. When I was doing a live show with Steph, we were not anti-Renardo Green, but because of the way the second round went and because they traded back with Kansas City, who then moved up to get an offensive lineman,
But they actually hurt them, right?
Oh, God. Yeah, that stupid tweet from David Lombardi. But Renardo Green is a really interesting player. I feel like he's a polarizing player. He seems to be a press man corner. And again, like I said earlier, if that's what they want him to do in the NFL, great. Take your shot and let's see what you can do. Don't make him play freaking zone. And I think that we're going to see a lot more man coverage. I think this is kind of a signal from the 49ers that we may be seeing some more man coverage than we have in the past.
I think maybe they might press a little bit more. I don't know that means that they're going to see a lot of man coverage. I feel like this is the same. We do this every year, dude. When they sign Mooney Ward, Mooney Ward, press man corner in Kansas City. They're going to play a lot more press man now. Guess what Mooney Ward plays when he comes to the 49ers? He plays off quarters. Ambry Thomas, press man corner. They're going to start playing a lot more press man. Guess what they take Ambry Thomas and make him do? They make him play off quarters. So I don't want to do this again, because I feel like we do this every year with the new cornerback with the 49ers. It's an indication. I think schematically they are kind of what they are. Maybe there's going to be a growth with Brandon Staley, but I don't know that changes too much, because their front is going to remain the exact same. They're not adopting the fronts Brandon Staley typically runs. They're going to keep their front because that's the best way to utilize what they believe in philosophically, which is Kasarik, Bosa, their defensive line, their front seven, like that. In terms of Renardo Green, I personally did not watch Renardo Green, so I don't have a personal take on Renardo Green yet. I will get to watching Renardo Green sometime over the next week or so. But just reading about Renardo Green and just hearing about Renardo Green in a variety of draft podcasts that I was listening to, not specifically for him even, it sounds like he's just a really competitive player, and he was a player with a lot of production. And I feel like that's kind of in tune with who the 49ers seem to covet in terms of their defensive players. They seem to be less worried about their measurables, though they do matter. Like we've talked about before, right? To play corner, outside corner in the NFL, you have to be a certain amount of fast. You can't be so slow. But they care about, like, does a guy compete? Is a guy competitive? How does a guy produce? How does a guy play on game day? And so those things really matter to them. It seems like Renardo Green is that kind of player. And I will say, just on a traits thing, I haven't watched him yet, but just on a traits thing, the fact that they took a corner 64th overall, I wouldn't be shocked if he's the starter next year. We talk about like corners next, or the starter meaning the third corner with Diamador Lenore and Ward, the third guy that plays on the outside when Lenore kicks inside. Because we talk about all the time about how, like, hey, corner's a premium position. Most of the best corners in the NFL, they go higher in the draft, whatever. I'm going to go from the assumption from there that Renardo Green comes with a higher tangible physical profile than an Ambry Thomas did, who was picked like in barely in the top 100, or Sam Womack, who was, the 140th pick in the draft, or Darrell Luter, who was the 120th pick in the draft, or the 130th pick in the draft. So I will throw that in there as well for my prediction with Renardo Green.
I think that they want to put Green on the outside, and they want Lenore to be the nickel.
Right, but I think it would still be a case of Lenore plays outside with Ward on first down, and then the position that they kept having in flux once they benched Oliver, that third outside corner, I think that's who Green would be. Correct? We're on the same page?
I think so. 71% of his snaps over the last two seasons came to lined up wide, for what that's worth. Like you said, apparently the Niners like to switch it up. The fact that Mooney Ward has been able to be so good doing the complete opposite thing he did in Kansas City is a credit to Ward, by the way.
Yeah, sure, for sure. But I do think in general, in the Seattle scheme, a lot of guys play a lot of man in college, and then maybe they can't run as good, and they become zone corners in this scheme, in the NFL. I will also say the one thing with Renardo Green, because we'll throw it out there because everybody says it, right? I'm gonna go back and watch the game. I kind of vaguely remember watching it briefly, because it was one of the first games in college football season, but apparently he played very, very well. Both versus Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas were both studs and superstars. So that's also there.
Why do you have to say it like that?
Well, because sometimes you get this game where people are like, hey, this guy killed it. This is the greatest game ever, whatever. And you turn it on, and I don't actually get that feeling. I feel like sometimes it's a little bit overblown. Like one person says it, and then when the Niners draft Renardo Green, everybody needs the popular thing to say. So it's like, hey, I watched him play LSU. Man, the way he shut down Brian Thomas. Now it turns into folklore. So I'll go watch it for myself and decide what lore is eligible, I guess, for Renardo Green, as if I'm the person that should delineate that anyway.
Well, if you want to feel a little better about it, if you're watching the stream, you can see.
Is this the fade?
It's a bunch of different plays from him in the game against LSU.
Was that not the greatest tackle you've ever seen?
I mean, okay, like, come on.
I'm just saying, that's how I feel. Oh, that's a hell of a play.
He's, I like the way he tackles. He appears to be a very physical tackler, which as a Shanahan corner, you have to be. If you've listened to him speak or do any interviews, he talks about, I love the fact that he's like, hey, I shut down Neighbors. He didn't say specifically the name. He said, I shut down the top guys in this draft class. For him to come out publicly and say that shows me a little confidence, A little swag. I like it. I think you need to have that at that position. So I like Renardo Green. I'm not saying he's going to be
his confidence does come across. Like, even if you're casually watching the Florida State defense, which I did, like, I will say the only reason I knew the name, because I didn't really watch corners in this draft, was because he just had a lot of confidence. When I didn't know if he was good or bad. I just remember him being very, very confident the few times I watched Florida State over the course of the college football season. And I agree, that's really, really important for a corner, and that's kind of the opposite of Ambry Thomas. So maybe it's kind of the Niners saying they're overcorrecting there, because Ambry Thomas, one of the biggest issues is he constantly seems to lose that self-belief and confidence in himself.
Yeah, I feel like if you are Ambry Thomas or Darrell Luter or Samuel Womack, you shouldn't buy any green bananas. Let's be honest. Like,
oh man, you think Yadam and Rock Yassin are that set in stone? I think those are classic practice squads. Those are the Chris Conley, Trent Taylors of the defense.
What have any of those guys done to make you think they automatically deserve a spot? I mean, right now, the most famous thing Darrell Luter is known for is the damn fumble in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, but they picked them, right? So they'll value keeping them on the 53, even if it's doing an Ambry Thomas where you're on the 53, but you're inactive, and Janoris Jenkins gets signed on Thursday and he's active on Sunday. So I think that's probably more likely. I think Womack is the one. Well, they're out on Womack, man. Let's be honest. Yeah. This is one of those things that, like, everybody is like, oh, they're high on Womack. Oh, Womack's such a stud, whatever. Let's go through the facts of Womack's career. He was their starter 2 years ago, week 1. In 2022, week 1, Sam Womack started in the Trey Lance monsoon game in Chicago. Sam Womack started at nickel. He then lost his job before the week 2 Seattle game in practice to Diamador Lenore. He was then deactivated for portions of the rest of the year there. Then this year, they didn't even try him at nickel. They only tried him at outside corner. Week 1, when it felt like he had a stronger offseason, they started Ambry Thomas and he was deactivated. Then he got hurt. He comes back from injury. He seems like a strong special teams performer to my naked eye, and they're still deactivating him on game day. He is the one that I don't know what went wrong or what went right. They never seem to talk about it. But he went from starter to, I don't think they have a spot for him when they're deactivating him. I think he was deactivated for the Super Bowl, if I remember correctly.
That's obviously not a good look. You lose your job to freaking Diamador Lenore in practice. Not great. I had Womack, Luter, and Ambry Thomas in my losers up on our website now, goldstandardniners.com. By the way, speaking of the website, shout out to Slot Right Marketing for helping creating the website. It's the same place you went when you did the 49ers Media Madness. Slot Right specializes in marketing, consulting, creative strategies. They can help increase your brand equity. They have 20 years of experience within the digital marketing space. They know how to get your brand rolling. So go to their website, slotright.com. That's slotright.com. All right, Vish, let's get into one of maybe the most encouraging picks of the draft for a lot of people, Mr. Dominic Puni. Everything you heard about him was super great. Experience at all 5 offensive line positions, great. No sacks and 4 pressures allowed in 2023, great. In fact, no sacks allowed in his last 25 starts in college football. He can move, he can pull, good personality. Everything I've heard about Dominic Puni is that the 49ers got a steal.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I also didn't watch the offensive linemen, so I'm going off the same thing as you, which is other people's opinion of Dominic Puni, and everybody seemed to love Dominic Puni. I will say I'm not as positive on Dominic Puni's 2024 contributions as I see people talking about. To me, like, this will be a guy that will likely be, like, deactivated and be like a guy that'll be developed over the course of the season. I do think so. When we're talking about an offensive lineman, we're talking about a guy that's, going to be transitioning to play multiple different positions.
Better not.
I'm just saying what I think is likely. Hopefully not, but I think that's what's going to be likely.
You're telling me he can't beat out Spencer Burford for a roster spot?
I don't think he will.
Who can't play full time.
I think Spencer Burford will make the team, and I think Dominic Puni will make the team, and I think John Feliciano will make the team.
Richard Giles says, I just want to see Puni win the right guard position and then have Feliciano move to center, and I'll be happy. I like most of our picks. I just wanted to lead to that O-line change. I don't know about Feliciano and playing center, but my God, why can't we put a little pressure? John Feliciano, like he's the best we can do. And Spencer Burford, like why is Burford even on the team? He could never handle a full-time role ever. We're talking about a 4th round pick. Like maybe he just ain't it. If Dominic Puni can't beat out Spencer Burford, I'll be very disappointed.
I feel like that's fair. Is he confirmed to be the right guard for sure?
Who?
Dominic Puni.
Well, they said they're going to start him inside. They said that we think he might be able to play tackle. He might have versatility, but they're going to start him inside. His arms aren't that long, apparently, which is why a lot of people think he'll be inside. But I don't know. I just
because here's my question. And here's why I talked about the red shirt, right? Aaron Banks has been yet to be given an extension by the 49ers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Banks is coming into a contract year. This is his 4th year. This is his contract year.
No way.
Exactly. And so my thought process when with Dominic Puni was not right guard. I thought this is the future left guard for when Aaron Banks walks, because that's how I feel like the Niners draft. To me, the Niners always draft with the mindset of like, you look at, we're going to talk about the Malik Mustafa pick. Is the Malik Mustafa pick not the most obvious? We're not going to pay Talanoa Hufanga. And look, we got a guy very similar to Talanoa Hufanga and Malik Mustafa. To me, that's how I felt about the Dominic Puni pick. I know a lot of people looked at it as the right guard, but for me, originally, that was where my head went first. They developed Aaron Banks. I'm not sure they feel like they can pay Aaron Banks, and he's going to be gone after next year. He's the left guard. This would be the future left guard. That's how I thought.
Did you see the contracts that guards got this offseason? There's no way they're paying Aaron Banks that. But I don't like this.
Well, I will say this, though. I can't really – I don't have a good impression of what Aaron Banks would be worth on the open market, right? Do you? He's like kind of a starter, but he's also kind of like another starter. He's just another starter.
Right. He's a guy. He's a guy that you don't give a second contract to. League average starter, maybe a little better, maybe a little worse, depending on the week. I ain't paying that guy, but I don't like this whole, what is this, the Trent Baalke draft plan? We draft a guy that can't play right away? No, get in there.
I'm not, I will say, I have no clue if he can or can't play right away from a technique standpoint and all of that. This is sole projection based on what usually happens with offensive linemen, especially middle round ones. Usually there is a physical transformation that needs to happen, and I'm making that projection based on that generalization. I will try to watch him. I'm not the best at watching offensive linemen, but this could be something where we're in June or July and we're talking about Dominic Puni being NFL ready. I'm just conservatively projecting too. So you could be right, Rob. He could come in there and kick Spencer Burford's ass and you could be all happy.
Good. I hope so. This is why I feel like the preseason is going to be really fun this year because there are so many of these guys that I think are actually going to get like extended run, and we're going to get a chance to watch a lot in the preseason. Like I think we might see Pearsall a little bit, like not a little more than a little bit in the preseason. We're going to get to see Jacob Cowing and some of these guys, Mustafa you mentioned. So I think it's going to be very fun. So everything
Owens.
Yeah, that too. Everything I've heard about Dominic Puni was super encouraging. So, and I don't know if any of it's true. I completely agree with you. He may stink, but my hope is that he can come in and take Spencer Burford's job.
I'm just doing, Rob, like typically what happens with offensive linemen is the strength, the body transformation. It happens with Aaron Banks. Even the first round guys, they usually get on the field faster because of the investment in them. But oftentimes, like that first year, even like Penei Sewell was holding all the time, weeks 1 through like 13 of his rookie year. So there's an adjustment period. And I'm just projecting that Dominic Puni is another guy that needs a year to adjust to the NFL as an offensive lineman, rather than predicting that he's the rare guy that comes in and is able to pick it up and start day 1, year 1.
Daza 0187 YouTube channel member. Shout out to all our YouTube channel members. Please consider becoming a member. It's less than $3 a month. Daza says, I don't see how the 49ers have gotten better after this draft compared to other NFC teams. Well, one thing to keep in mind, Daza, 49ers are already better than every other NFC team. In fact, the odds for the Super Bowl are out. They've been updated after the draft. You know who has the best odds in the NFC, Vish?
The 49ers.
Plus 600. You know the second best odds in the NFC?
The Detroit Lions.
Plus 1,200. So their odds are twice as long as the 49ers are to win the Super Bowl. So
I think they've gotten better too. They didn't have anything like Ricky Pearsall last year. They could have used Ricky Pearsall in the Super Bowl.
No
They
doubt.
needed a guy like that.
Or
That's
again,
the kind of guy they needed. A guy that's reliable. He gets open. He makes tough catches over the middle. He gets open on time and on schedule when the quarterback needs to throw the ball. Like we talk about, hey, Brock Purdy does these things well. He's accurate. He throws the ball with precision. He throws the ball with timing and all of that. Don't you want a wide receiver who then is very, very compatible with that? Ricky Pearsall's game is very compatible to all the strengths that we want to talk about with Brock Purdy. So to me, immediately makes them better. Renardo Green, again, I haven't personally watched him, but everything I hear everybody else say about him and what I feel about Darrell Luter and Sam Womack and Ambry Thomas and the rest of the Niners corners, to me, that's a day one starter. So to me, they're automatically already better.
I
let alone the other picks.
At least, like, you telling me we can't improve on Ambry Thomas? Like, really? Like, it's harder.
That's where I'm at, right? With Renardo Green. It's like I look at Luter, Womack, and Thomas, and I'm like, if you're drafting a second round guy, I hope, like, unless he's a huge bust, like, I hope he's better than those guys.
That would be a massive disappointment. I agree. I like this comment from James on YouTube. Says it's easier to get better when you have a bunch of holes to fill. The Niners roster was already stacked. Tough to improve a bunch when you already have a stacked roster. Exactly. It's so much easier in the NFL to go from 7 wins or 8 wins to 10, 11, 12 wins than it is to go from 12 wins to Super Bowl champion. That last bit of improvement is way harder to get than going from a below average team to a playoff team. It just is, because you have less holes to fill.
And usually it's specialists that help you get over the top. Guys that can do certain things in specific.
Sorry, this comment from Daza. I appreciate the conversation, Daza. He says, how are they getting the ball to Pearsall in the Super Bowl when there's no one to block Chris Jones?
No one's ever blocking Chris Jones. Yeah. No one's ever blocking him. The Chiefs have beaten a lot more teams than just the Niners in the playoffs over the course of the last 4 years. And Chris Jones has been a common denominator, dominating every single one of those different offensive lines.
Nobody drafted is blocking Chris Jones, and nobody in the NFL is blocking Chris Jones. That's why he just got a pile of money from the Chiefs. And by the way, how much of a shot in the gut was it? The Chiefs win back-to-back Super Bowls and then immediately re-sign their head coach, their GM, their defensive coordinator, their best defensive player, and now Travis Kelce.
Like, I let them be all happy. Things can't be going too good, There is a little bit of something like that. Maybe Murphy's Law, you know what I'm saying? A little bit of something for the Chiefs. Here's what I will say, though, about Chris Jones, and you talked about nobody being able to block him. I do think the Ricky Pearsall pick gives us a little bit of insight onto how Shanahan views the Super Bowl differently from us, right? I think we're looking at some inflection point plays when the game was already on the line. And we're saying I'm obsessed with saying Ricky Pearsall apparently, but Chris Jones made those plays then.
Right.
Shanahan is looking at plays before the game was ever on the line and saying the biggest theme from the game was we could not separate from their corners, which everybody who's watched that game can look at Deebo Samuel and say he struggled before injury and after injury versus Trent McDuffie. And Ricky Pearsall is the exact antidote to that. He's a guy that separates consistently. And then when we talk about a compatible fit with Purdy, that's where this is extra important because he tracks the ball very well. He adjusts to the ball very well. He catches the ball over the middle very cleanly, and he gets open on time very quickly and on time when he's supposed to efficiently. So that's where I think it makes extra sense for Ricky Pearsall.
I think you're 1,000% right. I think Shanahan, as much as we talked about the 3rd and 5 at the end of regulation or the third down in overtime, Shanahan's looking at 2nd and 10 with 13:26 to go in the third. And,
he's looking at the many 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s that they couldn't convert when the game was still back and forth in the middle of the field, or when they had the lead and they went 3 and out twice and they couldn't convert on 2 third downs that the Chiefs went cover 0. And it's like, man, you got to have some answer versus that. So I think that Ricky Pearsall picking him is all about that. And to me, that doesn't mean you trade Brandon Ayuk. Like, to me, Brandon Ayuk, it's about pairing Ricky Pearsall with Brandon Ayuk. And that's where, Deebo, my favorite player, gets a little bit lost in the shuffle long-term with the 49ers.
Let's get to Malik Mustafa. Safety, Wake Forest. I didn't know anything about him either, Vish. Oh my God. When you watch him, this dude is a missile.
Stud.
He is a rocket, man. I love Dane Brugler's note. When he tackles people, players go backwards. 1,000%. The dude is a hammer.
Yeah, I 100% agree. This is like Talanoa. This is basically like Talanoa Hufanga. And to be fair to Talanoa Hufanga, he came in with even more accolades than Mustafa, right? He was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. And even though he didn't test well, he would have probably gone higher in the draft if it wasn't for an extensive injury history. And I will say I think Hufanga is being underrated this offseason from the standpoint that I think he will start the entire season for the 49ers. But I think there's an understanding that for this defense, they don't feel like they need to pay a safety that much money anymore because they're not asking their safeties to do what they asked Jimmy Ward to do 2 years ago. When you had Jimmy Ward drop down to the slot, when you had Jimmy Ward man up tight ends, you were asking for a $10 million player at safety because not everybody can do what Jimmy Ward is doing. Now, when you're asking guys to play quarters 60% of the time, they play cover 3 the other 30% of the time, you're not really looking for too many specialized players. That's why Tashawn Gibson at 35 can walk in and start 2 years of safety for the 49ers. To me, Mustafa is right along those lines. I think he's a future starter for the 49ers at safety, and he's Hufanga's replacement.
But you don't think that Brandon Staley is going to ask his safeties, Hufanga, Malik Mustafa, to do kind of that hybrid sort of move you around, make you do a whole bunch of stuff? Because that's the impression that I got. Isn't that why they wanted Brandon Staley to be a part of this team?
Yes, but I don't think that they're going to be doing, like, maybe they disguise their coverages more and stuff like that. But I don't know that they're now going to start featuring safeties in their defense. And here's why I say that. Because we can say, well, Brandon Staley might do this. They might play more quarter, half because that's what he played and stuff. But philosophically, this defense is still built around Warner and Bosa. That's where the money's at. I don't think they're going to change too much to take away from those two guys being able to make plays. And so to me, like the reason I talked about it for years with Jimmy Ward could have gotten more interceptions if he was just featured more in positions where the ball would go in this defense. Oftentimes he was put in position. No, that's 100% the truth.
Jair Brown more interceptions than Jimmy Ward ever had.
Because Jair Brown has never had to been asked to come down on a tight end and say, you play man coverage on the tight end for the entire game. Jimmy Ward has had to do that.
Not every year, all the time, though.
No, but that had to do with why he didn't get opportunities to get the ball in his hands. He was often in positions where he was playing man coverage or he was stuck in a spot where the ball wouldn't go. They needed him to eliminate something. I think they're not. My point is they're not going to feature the safeties. They're going to feature their stars on this defense who are already existent. And so I don't expect them to now do a lot more changes with their safeties because they're not like bringing in a star safety to feature in this defense. Like when Brandon Staley was with the Rams, John Johnson made an all-pro team as his safety, and John Johnson was paid a lot of money and extended a lot of money.
It's funny that you mentioned bringing in a star safety, Vish, because Bob Condata of the Seattle Times, he used to write for the Seattle Times. I don't know if he still does or what his exact affiliation is now. But he says that the 49ers have been keeping an eye on Jamal Adams.
Is that a star safety today?
Well, he's a name. I would hate it if they did it because Jamal Adams can't cover. He's never
can't run anymore. That's not true.
I don't want any
very well in 2021, Rob.
Jamal Adams is the Roots Chris, not Roots Chris. Oh shoot! Now I forgot my damn Jamal Adams analogy. You made me forget it. St. Elmo's. He's the St. Elmo's of safety. St. Elmo's is a steakhouse known for its cocktail sauce. Jamal Adams is a safety known for his sacks. I don't want that.
Yes, 3 years ago. Then he had 1 year, I think either in 2022 or 2021, where he played very well in coverage and whatever. And then he got hurt. What did he do? He blew out his patellar. He did something with his knee. Yeah, very bad injury. And then since then, he can't run. That's where it comes down to. I'm not even 100% sure Jamal Adams starts. If I'm being 100% honest, for the 49ers, if they traded for him. I'm not sure he's better than Jair Brown and Hufanga today.
Justin Simmons is a safety that's out there.
Yeah, there we go. That would be one, right?
By the way, keep this in mind too. If you sign a free agent now, they do not count against the compensatory pick formula. So maybe the 49ers were waiting for that if they wanted to make a move at safety. Nees says, did you see the rumor about how the incorrect leaked DeJean pick to Silver could have been an attempt by the Niners front office to find out who was leaking? I did see that. Did you notice that, Vish, on draft night?
No, I didn't know that. I saw JPA football, who I fell for the DeJean thing, by the way. But yeah, I didn't know it was Silver.
It's so I was, we're all sitting here and we're like, all right, who's the pick going to be? And then Silver tweets out that it's DeJean. And I'm like, okay. And then I see like Pro Football Network or Pro Football Focus. Or I know Benjamin Solak starts tweeting about, oh, DeJean to the 49ers. It's a good fit, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden Silver tweets out, oh, no, sorry. I got it wrong. It's Pearsall. And a lot of people think that the Niners leaked different names to different people like Tyrion Lannister in Game of Thrones to try and figure out who was leaking what.
Well, I think the only reason they would have picked DeJean, and that goes back to the previous conversation of if they would be changing their defense and going to a very Brandon Staley style specific defense, then they would ask their star to do things a little different from what they asked their nickel to do currently in their defensive structure. And for that, somebody like Cooper DeJean might be very useful. That's why Vic Fangio took him. So if that's getting leaked to Mike Silver, I would assume the person who would want Cooper DeJean's name would start with Brandon and last name Staley.
But they are going to the Staley defense, Vish. Why do you think he's here?
They're not changing the front to him. So what do you mean they're going to his defense? They're already not playing that front. And they played off quarters. Coverage. Yes, but they played off quarters with the Rams. That's what the 49ers play. Like, what do you think is going to change? They're going to play quarter, half more, stuff like that. I know that people talked about them playing cloud coverage more. That, to me, is quarter, half. That's where I'm not understanding when people say this is the Brandon Staley defense. The front is completely different. The front is the front the 49ers run. They have not changed that.
I think that they want Brandon Staley. Remember, Lynch talked about, well, we didn't originally run the wide 9, and then we incorporated the wide 9 into what we do. So I think they're going to try and find a way to fold in some of Staley's stuff with the front that they have.
Right. Well, but that's what I'm interested to see. Coverage-wise, though, to me, that doesn't sound like it's too much different than what they have been doing, because the four coverages I really remember Brandon Staley playing with the Rams, I didn't watch him as much with the Chargers, was they played a lot of quarter, half, just cover 6. They played quarters coverage, which is 49ers played a lot of that. They played a lot of cover 3 where they would rotate down. And then they played a lot of quarters lock at the time because they had Jalen Ramsey and they could man him up on the backside. They played this against the Seahawks a lot, where on any 3-by-1 formation, they would man up Jalen Ramsey on DK Metcalf and lock the backside. And then whoever the quarter safety was on that side would then cheat and help cover whoever was the number 3 on the 3-by-1. So I like, that's where I'm hesitant to be like, well, something drastic is going to change, because like I'm having difficulty like verbalizing like that's exactly what's going to change, because the front is staying the same with the Niners. And so I think like even if they do change like philosophically with how they maybe tweak and how they play certain coverages, maybe now the rules are a little bit different in quarters than they have been in the past, I still think they would be, well, a quarters team, and they're not going to ask, now they're not going to go from needing like a Jair Brown-Hufanga safety tandem to needing, Justin Simmons maybe, because I don't think they're going to sign him. Do you?
I think they need another, let me try that again. They need another safety, I would think, they need a body, and like Justin Simmons is out there.
They have 4, right now.
So they have Hufanga, they have Jair Brown, they have Malik Mustafa, and let me see. Let me throw it up really quick. Did they go safety in the Jalen Mahoney's a safety. He was one of the undrafted free agents. I don't know. I just feel like if Justin Simmons is out there and he ain't expensive, like, why not? And he won't cost you a comp pick now.
Yeah, that's also true.
Okay. Can we get to maybe my favorite pick of the whole night?
Yeah. Isaac
Guerendo. Holy hell, Vish. He's 221 pounds and he runs a 4.33. Do you know in the last 20 years at the combine, there have only been 2 guys that weigh 220 pounds and have run a 40-yard dash in that fast a time. Do you know who they are?
What did DeMarco Murray weigh at the combine?
No, not DeMarco.
Darren McFadden?
DK Metcalf and Isaac Guerendo, and that's the whole damn
Really?
list. He is
Really?
fast as hell, and he's not small. He's 6 feet tall. How could you not like this guy?
Well, shoot, I feel like they just drafted the better version of the bus. Gosh, with the description like that.
They drafted a better version of Elijah Mitchell.
That was the comp I heard Shanahan put out, and that was the comp that I heard a lot of other people use. And to me, that's a great pick if he turns out to be that. A 4th round running back. Like, for all the running back picks we do crap on them for, Mitchell was the one that was like truly wow, like a great pick in terms of the outsized production they got for a 5th round running back. They could get a better version of Mitchell. I didn't watch Guerendo, so I'm just going off of what you're saying. But I did the relative athletic score on Guerendo. That is a fun chart to look at.
Dude, I wrote about it on our website, goldstandardniners.com. Guerendo has a better 40 than Elijah Mitchell, a better vertical leap, a better broad jump, and a better 20-yard shuttle, and he's 2 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier. Like, holy hell. This is like a 49er if we've ever seen one. And I love whether it's Guerendo, whether it's Ricky Pearsall, whether it's Jacob Cowing, who we'll talk about in a minute. 49ers added some speed to this roster.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And Guerendo will look quite good coming off the bus, huh?
I mean, he'll look good coming off the bus. He'll look good in relief of Christian McCaffrey. Like, if Elijah Mitchell gets hurt again, I think there's a pretty good chance he's just gone.
Man, what if they cut Jordan Mason? How many upset people do you think there will be when that happens?
A lot. There will be a lot. I know Grant Cohn will be very upset. But
I feel like Jordan Mason is like one of those players that I feel like this fan base is just convinced is a superstar. And like, I don't know. I feel like if he was a superstar, it's not like the Niners are actively like not trying to use him. I just think he's like any other running back they've ever had. And that's kind of how they view him. And he's got a great story and he runs really hard. Yeah. So this is interesting to me because I do think it puts the pressure on him now. Will he make this roster?
Jeremy Seeking says, I like Guerendo, but he's never started in college. Running back by committee back. Well, guess what? He ain't starting in the pros either, Jeremy. So I'm fine with that. When you have a guy that's that much of an athletic freak, I understand Shanahan's fascination with it. I thought this was the most kind of luxury pick that they made in the night. Like, did you really need to go running back and trade up for a running back too, by the way?
I'll give you a different perspective on it. How about this?
All right.
Okay. We're talking about replacing one of the most important players on the 49ers eventually in this draft in Deebo Samuel, right? Maybe not this year, but we're talking about, I don't think any of us look at the 2025 49ers and think, yeah, Deebo Samuel is guaranteed to be there. I think we look at his future at that point as a massive question mark. Well, I haven't watched Guerendo, so this is all projection too. So tell me if this is a wrong projection of his game as well, just based on the size, speed delineation you've given me. Well, if they're replacing Deebo in the pass game with Pearsall, he's going to kind of be their new flanker on the other side of Brandon Ayuk, who will be the split end. Maybe Guerendo is their version of getting Deebo's physicality in the run game in 233 pounds and 4.3 of that. I don't know, because I don't know if Guerendo actually runs like that with the ball in his hands. And I hesitate to compare anybody to Deebo with his physicality and whatever, because there's only one Deebo Samuel or two Deebo Samuels in NFL history. We've not seen many people ever run with the ball in their hands the way Deebo does. It's a one-of-one generational ability, but that would be my guess, I guess, based on what you said of like, I don't know why they traded up for a running back given their situation. Well, Mitchell's help's the easy response to that, and they don't necessarily trust Mason given that they never give Mason opportunities. It's very easy to see that they don't trust him. But the other way for me to look at it is if we're talking about replacing Deebo, maybe this guy brings the other element of replacing Deebo. But that, I think that one, even as I say the take aloud without watching Guerendo, I feel like it's far-fetched.
But like, maybe you don't have to like replace Deebo with Deebo. Like, just change. You can change the offense.
But you need his physicality, right? You need to replace his physicality in some capacity because his physicality is meaningful to everybody else's physicality. Like, there's an emotional impact by the guy. Okay, so you need somebody who runs that hard.
I mean, or you could be more of a finesse team. Like, you don't have to be the big physical team. Like, don't be afraid to change.
But I think that's their team character, though. Maybe you're right. Maybe they should change it. It
the
hasn't worked.
character can change. It changed when Shanahan got there. It can change when Shanahan is there.
You're right. They haven't won a Super Bowl with that mindset anyway. Maybe they should be a little bit more finesse.
I'm just saying, get good players. Don't worry about like, well, we got to get a guy that's like Debo. Like, no, you don't.
I don't even know if he's like Debo, Rob. I'm just making a suggestion because you asked why they traded up for a running back in the
I mean,
I haven't watched him. I don't know.
I think that they're frustrated with Elijah Mitchell. That's part of it. He's been banged up a lot. You need Christian McCaffrey. I don't even want to speak it into existence, but let's just say he's had a lot of touches the last 2 years, and we know what happens to running backs that sometimes have a lot of touches. Grant can talk about JP Mason all you want, but like clearly they have issues. They don't have full faith in JP Mason to come in because he would have gotten more opportunities by now if he did. And so Kyle wanted a piece, and this dude is what a monster. What a freaking monster.
And then I got one more for you. But I don't think they'll do this because I think they're loyal to the player, and I don't think they'll cut him before the year before his final, or like the year of his final year of his contract. But is this writing on the wall for Mitchell instead of Mason? Because Mitchell's health is not reliable, whereas even though he's better than Mason. Well, no. But in terms of they could cut Mitchell completely this offseason, like they could cut him before coming into the year.
Yeah.
Is it writing on the wall from that standpoint? Oh, you think it is?
I think it absolutely could be. Yeah.
I have a feeling that I just get this like Beathard vibe with Shanahan to Mitchell. And you know how he let Beathard finish out his first 4 years with the Niners? And it's from the vibe of, I feel like Shanahan felt bad for the beatings Beathard took in 2017. And I always feel like that's why they kept 3 quarterbacks and let Beathard finish out his contract. Similarly, when he talks about Mitchell and he talks about his toughness with his knees, I think he feels bad for the beatings Mitchell took in 2021. This is just a total shot in the dark perspective, but that's why I think they wouldn't cut Mitchell and they would let him finish his contract.
You're just making stuff up again. Grant and I do a segment called irresponsible speculation. Is that?
Yeah, this is the most irresponsible of irresponsible speculation. But to me, I could never make sense of why Beathard lasted on this team 2 years longer than he did. And I always felt like, man, he never got a chance because when they put him on the field, he should have never been on the field in 2017. And then they put him behind, like, you want to talk about actually bad offensive lines? That was me and you blocking for CJ Beathard, who had terrible pocket presence on top of it. So it was like just car crash after car crash.
Nick Eller points out they got the comp pick for Beathard. That turned into Brock Purdy, I believe.
Was it 7th round for Beathard? I thought it was.
I'm pretty sure that was the Brock Purdy pick.
Oh God! Well, all right, Nick Eller, you got me there. Sorry.
Also,
Shanahan knew.
I'm not making light of this at all, but I do wonder if it was a factor that the tragedy with his brother. I mean,
yeah, well, that's true.
Horrible thing, and then it's like, oh, by the way, we're cutting you. Like, damn, I'm not saying that was the reason, but it'd be nice to think that we treat these people like human beings, and maybe that was part of the decision. I don't know. All right, we've got.
I mean that's fair. That's fair. We should have maybe labeled this speculation from Rob and Vish.
Whoa! From Vish, not Robin.
Well, Rob, you brought up the
there was a personal situation. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly, but now we're both in this speculation. You're in it as deep as me, buddy.
Don't try to pull me in on your level. All right, I might be in there, but you're like knee deep. I'm like ankle deep.
Okay, buddy.
Let's go.
Say so.
Let's go back to the final couple picks here, and this will probably be the one that we spend more time on than anyone else. Jacob Cowing, wide receiver, 5'8", Vish. He's 2 inches shorter than I am, 168 pounds. He weighs more than me, but that's not really stunning. You all can see what I look like. I love the line from Dane Brugler. Plays with a jetpack on his back. He's great at tracking the ball in the air. He's a feisty blocker, which is obviously important in this offense. But the thing that's encouraging that I heard from people is like, hey, this isn't just like a guy that runs fast in a straight line and that's all he does. Like, he can run routes. He can create separation. He can get open. I loved it, man. Bring it on. Let's bring a feisty, fast guy on the team.
Yeah, so another guy, I'm sorry, I didn't watch him. I'll try to watch him over the course of this week. But when I saw it on paper, I thought this was their Ray McLeod replacement. Gosh, Tank Dell. I watched Tank Dell in Houston. Tank Dell was electric at Houston, and maybe Jacob Cohen is that too. But I don't necessarily get the impression that he will end up being Tank Dell. But I found this to be like their version of their Ray McLeod replacement, but probably honestly better because he's younger, he's more explosive, and I do think that when you talk about him as a feisty blocker, like Ray McLeod was feisty, but I do think Ray McLeod was missing some long speed and explosion that this guy might bring.
Ray McLeod. Don't say that name to me. I'll never forgive him for what he did in the Super Bowl and his comments.
You mean Darrell Luther?
No, Ray McLeod. He tried to pick up the damn ball instead of falling on it. And when
I know. I'm just kidding.
Jacob Cowing has over 4,400 receiving yards in his career. That's over 800 more than any other FBS player in that span.
That's incredible.
He's the only FBS. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He's the only FBS player, I believe, to have at least 85 catches 2 years in a row. If I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that was the case. He had the fastest 5 yard, the first 5 yards in his 40-yard dash were the fastest of any wide receiver at the combine. He got up to almost 15 miles an hour.
Right. Crazy explosion. I saw that stat too. That's where I went with, because I actually didn't watch him. More explosive Ray McLeod comes all from seeing that stat of seeing, well, this is the most explosive guy at the combine. Okay.
You're just lying at this point, is what you're telling people.
Well, I'm being 100% upfront on my opinion of this because it is a little bit flimsy, because I do feel like I could watch him and have a different impression for myself on what I think. This is just based on other people's opinions of reading on what they think. But I think the acceleration thing does make a difference in the new kickoff rule. When everybody is kind of starting from a full stop, I do think it makes a difference on who can really get up and go quickly. And I originally thought this was going to be like maybe Debo. Now it becomes this superstar kickoff weapon. You brought it up originally. We talked about it a little bit when that rule change happened with the show. But maybe now this is Jacob Cohen's way to contribute as a rookie, because if we're talking about a guy that I see a very, very steep road in front of him to get on the field next year, especially, he would be a guy I question.
Look at the kick return options that this team has. And again, we're in total uncharted territory with that. So who knows who the hell it's going to be. If you wanted to, you could put Debo back there. I think he would be incredible at it, but they may not want to risk that, which I understand. You could put CMC back there. I think he'd be great at it too, but again, injury risk. You could put Guerendo back there. Holy hell.
Yeah.
So back there, like, damn, they've got some really good options from, again, a 49ers special teams unit that hasn't had a kick return since Richie James 6 years ago. They haven't had one kick return touchdown in 6 years. One of these guys has got to do it, Vish. I can't take it anymore. End the drought.
Hind brings up Trent Taylor, too. There's another guy.
Taylor's not making the team.
He's a good fair catch guy.
He'll be fair. Are you even allowed to fair catch the kickoff? I don't think you are anymore.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
He would have been good at that. And then there's also Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk was terrible as a punt returner, though, when they tried him at it. Like, Mo Sanu was better than him, which is all kinds of problematic.
Ayuk was good at it in college, though.
Ayuk, in theory, should be good at it. He's good with the ball in his hands, but he was terrible when he did do it.
So they've got options back there at the return game. We don't need to get into the final two picks because I don't know much about them, and you probably know much about them, and I don't want to waste.
I haven't known much about since the second round pick, but at least I watched Ricky Pearsall, so that's one win for me.
The undrafted free agent options: Tariq Owens, son of Terrell Owens. Okay, I don't expect anything out of him, but why the hell not, right? Like, take a shot. Who knows? Corey Schrader's fascinating, Vish. He finished 8th in the Heisman voting. 8th, and he's an undrafted free agent. He's tiny. He's a super small dude, but he runs like Jeff Wilson. He's kind of like a bruiser. He ran a 4.61 40-yard dash.
The only kind of little back I can remember that ran 4.6 is like Duan Harris. Remember Duan Harris?
Yeah, Schrader is 5'8", 202 pounds. I don't
Trying to
know if you,
remember. I'm trying to see if those measurables just ring a bell. Like, do I remember a back with those measurables?
4.61 40-yard dash, 2.68 20-yard shuttle, 1.6 10-yard split, 33-inch vertical jump. He had
By the
over
way, in general, I just love how the combine has just normalized a lot of these numbers. It's just statistic attributes. Like you hear, like if somebody goes like 32 with the vertical jump, like I'm thinking in my head, like I got 0 shot at jumping 32 inches. And I hear a professional athlete jump 32 inches. I'm like, oh, man, that guy sucks. No explosion whatsoever. Like, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I couldn't jump 32 inches with a trampoline. Evan Anderson, the defensive lineman from FAU, I don't know anything about him. I know that when he got the call, he did a flip into the pool.
Oh, Drake Jackson, what's up?
He's like 330 pounds, something like that. And he did a flip into the pool. So I was impressed by that. Brazen Mays is a center from Southern Miss. I think he has the best name of anybody the 49ers have drafted. Mason Pline is a tight end that apparently has some basketball roots, which we've seen some guys have some success with that. Shanahan literally said after the draft, oh, I really wish we got a tight end. So they had to go out and get somebody.
Right.
They are still searching for a backup tight end behind George Kittle.
And it was a terrible year to be searching, right? Like now we understand why they spent draft picks on 2 last year. Because outside of Brock Bowers, this was not a tight end rich draft. They all went earlier than probably people thought they should go in terms of just draft pick projection, because there was like none of them in this draft. So it was not a good place to be looking for a tight end for sure. By the way, who's the Donovan West Memorial? Oh, like this, I thought this should be the pick at 62. Donovan West is going to start for the 49ers. Donovan West ends up being cut. Well, did he get cut in August? Did he even make it to September? Which one of those guys is the guy that we're going to like guarantee, oh, big time undrafted free agent, we're going to jump on the wave?
No, it wasn't Donovan West for me. Who was the guy that was like the fullback? He was running like the juice, like routes out of the backfield. He was like a huge dude. I can't remember who it was. What was his name? Not Jack Coletto. I can't remember his name now. I'm trying to
remember. Really I remember at this time last year, Donovan West was maybe
it was him that I'm thinking of.
No, this time during the Drake Jackson draft, excuse me. Donovan West, the center from Arizona, was the guy. Like people were like, oh, I was projecting him at 64. And then like every round after, they were like, they should take Donovan West. They should take Donovan West. Nobody in the draft takes Donovan West. They signed Donovan West as an undrafted free agent. They're like, this is the starting center. And, I'm believing this hype the entire time because I didn't watch a snap of Donovan West. And I'm like, oh, look at that. Here we go. So this is the KD Cannon?
No, the Poe. Poe was the guy I was thinking of.
Okay. Poe was yours?
Yeah, okay. Him. I was like, I couldn't think of his name. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Now I know exactly what you mean. When you said full background, I'm like, what the heck? Okay, but now I get it. He was, yeah.
That's who it was for me. I was like, he's gonna really do some things, and they got to steal. And look, the 49ers have had success with undrafted free agents. Emmanuel Mosley was an undrafted free agent. JP Mason was an undrafted free agent. Like, it's not out of the question that they hit on one of these guys.
Azeez Al-Shaair.
Yeah, Azeez. Hines says Tanner Mordecai sounds like a B movie villain. By the way, for the record, I freaking love B movies. I love
What's a B movie?
A B movie, like just a terrible movie that like takes itself way too seriously, bad special effects. Maybe they have like somebody that's either.
Are you talking about like Green Lantern?
No, because that like Sharknado, right? Like Sharknado is a great like this is a terrible
Give me something I would have watched.
Well, that's the whole point. Normally people don't watch B movies because they're just bad. I freaking love them.
I feel like I watch B-rated like B movie comedies all the time.
Yeah, no, comedies. I like serious.
You know what I'm talking about? The movies that are so incredibly stupid that you don't even want to suggest to other people that you watch them, but they're the ones that you really enjoy watching with your friends because of how stupid they are.
If I have like my wife takes the kids somewhere and like I've got a night in the house to myself. I fire up a freaking B movie like consistently. Monster fight movies, sign me up. One man takes on the mob. Yes, I'm here for it. Just kill a bunch of dudes. I'm watching the movie. Like I have
You need to watch some more Top Chef, my friend.
Yeah, that's less exciting.
Huh? Wow, that is so disrespectful.
Jedi says like Lifetime movies. No, not like Lifetime movies. I'm not watching the friggin' like the Hallmark movies. Like, no, I'm talking about like one man.
Dude, those are wholesome.
Yeah.
Except they're so predictable. The Hallmark
Charlene,
ones?
Waiting is a great B movie. It absolutely is, Charlene. I love Waiting. Have you ever seen that with Ryan Reynolds and Dane Cook?
I'm not a big
That's
movie guy, my friend.
Oh, well, yeah, you're terrible.
Jeez.
Charlene,
See, Charlene, there we go. Now we're talking.
You've won Vish over with your Top Chef love. There was another point I wanted to make about actual football. Ricky Pearsall went to Arizona State. He was originally coached by Herm Edwards.
Yeah.
Who we know gave the 49ers a suggestion to draft Brandon Ayuk, who he also coached at Arizona State. Herm Edwards is going to join me on Wednesday. I'm going to sit down with Coach Herm because I want to get the Pearsall. I want to get the details. I want to
get us a little N'Keal Harry in there too. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll come up in the.
I mean, the Niners were interested, so just be like Herm. What is it with you and wide receivers trying to put him on the 49ers? Huh?
Well, I want to know, like, what is the pipeline? Like, what is the relationship? Like, are you literally texting? Like, I want to know the ins and outs of that.
To be fair, go ahead. My fault. I was going to say the other thing Pearsall had going for him was he was excellent in the Senior Bowl, which is another Niners classic.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. But I want to know like what that pipeline is like and about Pearsall, the guy. Everybody says he's a gym rat and all that stuff. Maybe Herm could give us a couple of examples. So that's going to happen. I'm going to sit down.
See if it maybe goes through to Adam Peters too with Jaden Daniels.
Right. Who else is he sharing this damn intelligence? Right. I don't like that.
Yeah.
A point I made to Steph Sanchez on day 2 of the draft was like, now that there are so many of the Shanahan guys spread throughout the league, there's a lot more teams that are looking for players that the 49ers would be interested in. So maybe they do need to evolve because, if you're all looking for the same types of guys, it's going to be harder to get those guys. And you need to find guys that maybe other teams aren't looking for.
Yes, that's a really good point.
Wow. All right. By the way, also going to sit down with Mike Greenberg of ESPN tomorrow. He hosted the draft again. So we want to try and get some guests in here. So that's why I'm saying
he's just casually bringing on Greeny, guys.
Stay tuned to the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I know the draft is over and some people like to check out. I promise you, we will keep earning your time. And one of the ways we're going to do that is hopefully to bring on some cool guests.
You're going to get that shirt a quick wash before the big interviews?
No, I'm probably not going to wear this. So we had these made for the Super Bowl. Actually, Levin had these made because we were talking about the Super Bowl and we were like planning it out and what are we going to do? And then like 2 or 3 days before we left, he was like, do you think we should get shirts? I was like, yeah, I was wondering about that too. So he had them made, but the problem was they ran small. And so his was like unwearable. It was way too small. Mine is a little too small, but I'm wearing it anyway because I just was staring at it in my closet and I wanted to actually wear it on a show. So I don't know that I'll ever actually wear it out of the house because I look kind of ridiculous as opposed to, how I normally look, which is slightly less ridiculous. But that's why the shirt is on.
Well, I think it's a nice polo. I've been told I can look pretty good in a polo, and the size is a medium. Just throwing no hints, just putting it out there for a reason. If you want to, just send me a shirt, I would wear it.
I want to get new shirts made with a different looking logo that I kind of came up with that I think is kind of cool. If people want shirts, like if that's a thing that people are interested in, maybe I'll just order a bunch of shirts and we could all have Gold Standard shirts. That'd be cool. Nick Ellert says, Stats, how excited were you for the schedule release commercials and ads? I freaking love the schedule release. It comes out next month in May.
I know.
Wait.
You're the most excited person for it. It's become more relevant in my life because you care about it so much.
How could you not care about it? It's incredibly important. Like all these people that are like, oh, we knew all the teams they're going to play. The order is everything. It makes such a freaking difference. I can't believe people are not more into this. I think it's massive when the schedule comes out. I can't wait for it. I do. I look forward to it every year. Why are you?
Yes,
My
me
way.
too. The schedule release. Woohoo!
All right, that's it. The show is over. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio pods. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Like I said, some big interviews coming up. If you're new, thank you for watching. Please check it out. Give us a like, give us a follow. We will earn your time. Vish, I hope you have a great Monday night. We'll talk to you
You
next.
too, Rob. Awesome show. See you guys next time.